What's up, everyone? Welcome back around to another edition of the Sports Report right here on LBTV. As always, I'm your host, Jake Griffith. We have a special edition of the Sports Report here today. It's the second annual men's basketball preview show here on LBTV. I'd like to welcome in Lawson Warren to the desk. Now, as Lawson, we have a lot to talk about for men's basketball. You guys will kick off your season tomorrow night, less than 24 hours away from the opening tip-off of this exciting Lynx men's basketball season. But before we get to that, let's rewind a bit and let's talk about last season. And we'll start off with the final game of the year, Freed-Hardeman. You guys fell to Freed-Hardeman in the AMC championship game, postseason tournament, and you guys missed the national tournament by one spot. Obviously, that stings, especially in your senior year. But what sort of experiences can you, or I shouldn't say experiences, but what sort of knowledge can you impart to these younger players and this new crop of guys you guys bring after having those experiences in the past?
I think we've always been a team that kind of plays our best in big game situations, and I think the Freed-Hardeman game showed that in the conference championship. We knew that was kind of do or die time, and we played a great game. We kind of lost it there at the end, but I think that's something we'll want to pass on to the younger guys and continue, and the older guys can kind of lead them in that way, and just let them know that we play our best when the best is needed. So I think that's the main thing that we'll pass down to the younger guys.
Now, as is common knowledge, the AMC is one of the best basketball conferences in the NAIA, and thus is the conference the Lynx play in. You have teams like Columbia, Freed-Hardeman, who we just talked about, a slew of other teams. What does the conference look like this year?
I think the conference is stronger than ever. You still have the very strong teams at the top, like you said, Columbia, Freed-Hardeman, us, but I think we'll see a Park team that's much improved. Williams-Baptist will be just as good or better as they were last year. And then we have some of the other teams that were middle of the pack last year that will actually, I think, be a little bit better this year, like Missouri-Baptist, William Woods. I think they're also improved. So I think we'll get more respect this year as a conference as a whole. And I think we'll just see, improved across the board.
Now, obviously, the Freed-Hardeman Lindenwood-Belleville, that's developed into a nice little rivalry dating back to a couple seasons ago when you guys beat them twice. You guys beat them once last year on senior day here. It was a great win, first win against a ranked opponent for the Lynx last season. What's it going to take this season to beat Freed-Hardeman? Because I know everybody, with Freed-Hardeman being the defending AMC champions, they're the odds-on favorites right now to win the AMC.
Right. I think we just have to, when we get there, we'll just have to play our game. Like I said, we do have big game players. I think it's why we've always done so well against Freed-Hardeman, because they've always been, my junior year, they were number 1 in the country. Number 3 in the country was the second time we played them. They're always usually a top 10 team. So I think our guys will be ready to play, and we just have to play our game, and we'll give them a run.
Now, you talk about having big game players. How do you guys, in games that aren't big, make sure that, and you being a coach now, how do you make sure that their head kind of stays on straight and they focus on winning the easy games as well?
We just try to stress to them that every game is important. Last year, like you said, we were one spot away from the national tournament. So we can look back at some of the games that we would have thought as maybe easy win games that we might have lost. And we could say, hey, if we picked up this game last year, we're probably in the national tournament. So again, we can just stress to them every single game that every game is important, because it really is when it comes down to the national rankings and who gets in the tournament and who doesn't. So I think they know that now, and they will be ready for every single game.
Strength of schedule is a big part of what factors in making it to the national tournament, as well as record and things like that. But I want to get your opinion on this. You guys play a couple tough games early on. You guys will start the season with Southwest Christian, a much improved Southwest Christian team. You guys will play Missouri Valley College later on in the first half of the season at Marshall, Missouri, plus playing in the toughest basketball conference, arguably, in the NAIA. What would you grade your schedule as on a letter grade or a letter scale of A to F?
I think it's very tough, as tough as we've ever had, mainly just because the AMC is tougher this year, I think, than it usually is. And also, like you said, our out-of-conference schedule is very tough. You mentioned a few teams, but we also play Benedictine, second game of the year, who's always highly respected. They'll probably come in here ranked, and so that'll be a good test for us early. We play a tournament down in Kentucky on the road. It's always tough. It's a new environment. We're not real sure what to expect there. So I think, I would give it an A, because our conference schedule is so tough and we have an improved out-of-conference schedule. So I think it's a very tough schedule, and it'll be a good test for our guys.
Now, we talked about it the last time you were on the show. It's been a couple weeks ago, but I want to just sort of refresh everybody's memory. The roster this year, it has been dubbed the most athletic roster and one of the most talented rosters in school history. What can you tell us about this roster, especially some of these D1 transfers that we have or higher level transfers that we've brought in?
We are very athletic, much more athletic than last year, very talented. But also a lot of the guys we bring in, from JUCO transfers or, Shunquest Stevens is a transfer from USC Upstate. They bring a wealth of experience with them. He started every game for them last year, just as an example, and played big minutes for them for a team that won, I think, 24 games in Division I. So he has, high-level Division I experience. So he kind of brings that to us. And all our guys are like that. We have a lot of JUCO guys. They're juniors, they're upperclassmen. They've been around. So I think they bring with them a different kind of experience that we don't usually have. So we get a different, they can lead in different ways.
Now, you guys had a scrimmage against SWIC this past week. It started out kind of as a struggle against SWIC. What, as a coaching staff, can you take away from that game and apply it to this first game against Southwest?
I think, one of the main things is they applied very heavy pressure. They were in full court press the entire game, and we've been working on our press breaker and things like that in practice since then, and I think we will continue to work on that, and we can just kind of take from that game that we need to handle the pressure better. It was really the first time we had seen that pressure this year. It was only our third scrimmage, and I don't anticipate a lot of teams will play us that way, but I think we'll be more prepared in the future after seeing that if we are pressured like that.
Now, we've talked about the transfers that have come in. Let's talk about some of the returning players. And I want to start off with a good friend of the show, Justin Tourneau. He is back on the team this year. He redshirted last season. He was part of the team that made the NAIA National Tournament, as were you, for the first time in school history. What experience do you think Tourneau brings to the team?
I think a guy like Justin is great to have around for the newer guys, transfers or freshmen, because he's been around the program, like you said, for so long. This is his 5th year. I came in with Justin in 2011. And so he just knows what we expect of our players, and he knows, just as a whole, what we do here. So he can kind of pass that down, and it's great to have guys like him, Colin Mingo, the guys that have been around to kind of help the newer guys along.
Now, before we let you go, Lawson, I do want to talk Southwest Christian because that is obviously the big thing on everybody's mind. Tomorrow night, 7 p.m., you guys will play Southwest Christian in the opening game of the season. What can we expect from Southwest Christian in this game tomorrow night?
I think they will be improved on last year. We did lose to them last year, but I still think they will be a better team this year than they were last year. Completely new coaching staff. Coach Bliss, he's the coach of Baylor, is the head coach there now. And we're still getting a handle on them right now, but we feel like we're starting to figure out, who they are, who they have, things like that. And so the main thing is I would say that they are an improved team. So that's what I would say.
Now, I do want to talk, you did reference the fact you guys did lose to them last year. You were a member of that team. From a personal coaching experience, instead of just a general overall, but from you personally as a coach, what knowledge can you impart to those guys based on what you know about Southwest and what you've seen playing them at their place?
I do know last year they had a lot of good shooters, and some of those guys will be back. So I would say defending the three-point shot against them will be very important. And again, just never underestimating any opponent. Just saying every game's important, and I think we'll be ready for the game tomorrow.
All right, Lawson, thank you very much for joining us at the desk. We'll let you get back to game prep. Don't forget the Lynx will take on the Southwest Christian Eagles tomorrow night, Friday at 7 p.m., the opening tip-off time, here at Lindenwood-Belleville, on the campus of Lindenwood-Belleville at Lynx Arena, just adjacent to the studios here at LBTV. Earlier this week, yours truly caught up with some of the new transfers on the basketball team to talk how the season is expected to go, expectations for the way the team will play as a whole, and how they fit into this Lindenwood-Belleville roster.
Coming off a turbulent 2014-2015 campaign, one which saw the Lynx lose to Freed Hardeman in the AMC championship game and narrowly miss the national tournament by 1 spot, Lindenwood-Belleville has used this offseason to retool and rebuild their team by bringing in a slew of D1 and community college transfers to help the team dominate the AMC this season. with players such as Shunquest Stevens, Sean McGee, Nate Sims, and Joey De La Rosa coming into the team, as well as bringing back players such as Justin Tourneau and Andrew Doobie from last year. Coach Spinner's Lindenwood-Belleville Lynx look primed and ready for one of the best seasons in school history.
It's a lot of new faces, so a lot of Lynx Nation doesn't know really who we are. We only have a few coming back from last year. We have a couple injuries, so a couple of guys are going to have to step up and play. And we got a lot of senior leadership. That's what's exciting. So a lot of older veterans that know what they're doing.
The path back won't be easy, however. This offseason, the Lynx graduated all-time leading scorer Craig Anderson, as well as leading rebounder in school history Lawson Warren. Warren, a graduate assistant head coach here at the university, looks to provide insight for the younger players based on past experiences. With just a handful of hours standing between the Lynx and their home opener of the 2015-2016 campaign, Curran Walsh, senior guard and returning player from last year's roster, believes that the team is putting forth the effort it will take to perform at a high level this season.
We look pretty good. We're going hard in practice. We got a lot of senior leadership, so they're always pushing us. We're always going hard, and our captains are doing a good job.
Despite the large amount of roster turnover coming into this season, the coaching staff believes this will be one of the most athletic, if not the most athletic team. The Lynx also have a highly touted recruiting class for the 2015-2016 season, featuring players such as Sean McGee, a freshman from Fort Wayne, Indiana. While he hasn't been here long, McGee has made an immediate impact in practice, according to the coaching staff. And McGee believes that this team has what it takes to perform night in and night out and possibly shock the world.
I think you can expect us to come out and play competitive every single night on the floor. I think we got a lot of veterans on the floor. I think we got a lot of nice young talent and a lot of few transfers coming in. I think you'll see a lot of guys playing hard, a lot of threes going up. I think we'll play pretty good this year.
With the Lynx back for a second season in the American Midwest Conference, Lindenwood-Belleville will have to deal with Freed-Hardeman, arch rival, twice this season. They will play Freed once at home and once in Henderson, Tennessee. According to McGee, the Lynx' consistent play against the normally high-ranked Lions is what brought him to Lindenwood-Belleville.
Last year, Coach Seeley, he had sent me the game against Freed-Hardeman last year, and I just saw how the guys got after it and how everyone just seemed into it. And it just, I just felt like this Lindenwood would be a nice place to call home for me.
The road to that date with destiny starts this Friday, as the Lynx will kick off their 2015-16 season against Southwest Christian.
I just think that you can expect us to just like I said before, just to come out and play hard. You're going to see us play hard every game and just play freely.
We're going to come out. We're going to play as hard as we can. We're going to match their intensity. We're going to make them play our speed.
Lindenwood-Belleville believes that they have what it takes to start the season off with a win.
Just expect a lot of young talent who's willing to win, work hard. We got a good team coming in that loves playing with each other, that bonds on and off the floor. So expect the show.
The pieces are all there, but the question still remains. Can the Lynx put it together this season and return back to the NAIA National Tournament? Lynx fans sure hope so. For the Sports Report on LBTV, I'm Jake Griffith.
And welcome back to the Sports Report on LBTV. This time I'd like to welcome in Dave D'Alfonso, Sports Information Director here at LU Belleville, to the desk. And Dave, how you doing today?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me, Jake.
Hey, no problem. Thanks for coming down. And let's go ahead and talk basketball. But before we get into this season, let's talk a little bit of last season. Before you came on, we talked to Lawson Warren, grad assistant coach for the Lynx men's basketball team. He sort of previewed this upcoming season for us. For those of the members of the student body that either weren't here last year or need a refresher, let's sort of rewind and talk more in depth of last season. Finished, the Lynx did 22-11. We talked about it after it was originally 21-12 after the forfeit. 22-11 now. The Lynx struggled early on. They had some of those preseason tournaments they played in, one in Vegas. They also played in the Bethel Invitational in Bethel, Tennessee. They really struggled early on, Dave. One of the reasons behind that was the team just could not mesh.
No, they couldn't, and they suffered a couple close losses earlier in the year, which we get both those teams on our home court this year, so that's going to be a big test for this team. But last year, they had a couple close losses at the beginning of the year, and it kind of just started us off on the wrong foot. And then once conference season rolled around, Coach Spinner kind of found the right people to work with each other. Players started meshing better, like you said, and they really turned the season around about the halfway point and really finished strong. And if you take away that first third of the season, they're an NAIA tournament team. And I think that kind of got to some of the guys last year. Coach Spinner was kind of upset about the way they played early in the year, but really turned it around in the second half of the season, and that's where they want to start this season.
So they struggled meshing. They lost a couple key players to not just injury but also suspension and dismissal. That really hurt the Lynx last year.
It did. They started off with a great recruiting class, a lot of hype on a lot of the new players, and it just didn't work out. A lot of the guys that have been here for a couple years, they knew the system, and the new guys it didn't seem like they could fit into the system Coach Spinner wanted them to fit, and they kind of weeded themselves out of the team, and it turned out afterwards, it kind of worked out for the best. So this year we have a whole new recruiting class, so hopefully that we can avoid that this season.
A highly touted recruiting class, I think, to say the least.
Absolutely. Everybody's excited about these new guys coming in.
I talked to Lawson about a lot of D1 transfers, guys like Joey De La Rosa coming from St. John's.
Yes, we have 4 guys with Division I experience coming in this year. The biggest one, obviously, Joey De La Rosa coming from St. John's and playing in the Big East. That's just experience that you can't teach. Playing in Madison Square Garden, people just don't get to do that every day.
No.
And then, Shunquez Stevens and Nate Sims and TJ Jackson are 3 other names that are going to provide a lot of experience on the court this year for the Lynx that weren't here last year.
A lot of hype around Shunquez, or Quez as he's sometimes called. A lot of people think he's going to be a conference player of the year type player for the Lynx.
He certainly can be, and that's what we're going to need. With the loss of Craig Anderson last year, that's someone who you can't replace, not only on the court but off the court as well. He was a leader on the court for the Lynx, and he was the guy you could really just go to. And so someone's going to have to step up, and Quez is definitely a prime candidate for that.
Now, the Lynx did scrimmage against Swick earlier this week, and they didn't look too great. We talked to Lawson about it at the top of the preview show. What are your takeaways from that scrimmage? They really struggled early on to score.
Yeah, and Lawson, I saw a little bit of the game, and it was a very physical game. There was a lot of fouls being called. It was tough to get into the flow of the game for either team. So, preseason, it's a time to kind of work out the kinks, and I think that's what the team is still doing at this point. Just trying to find their flow with the offense, see who they can go to kind of stop a run if the other team's, scoring a bunch in a row. So it's a good start, and not as great as we wanted, but it's just a good way to kind of find the flow of the offense and see who you can count on.
Now, there are some question marks around this team despite the highly touted recruiting class. There is a sort of school of thought. Coach Spinner teams are usually led by dominant scoring point guards. And if you look, there's really not necessarily a dominant scoring point guard. We have dominant scoring guards.
Right.
What do you make of that? Do you feel like that will be an issue for the Lynx this year?
Well, the thing I can kind of highlight is that Chris Deans ended last season on a tear. He scored 12 or more points in 6 of the last 9 games, including a monster game in the AMC championship game at Freed-Hardman. So I think he's going to be the guy that really has to step up this year, leading the point. And if he can do that and create openings for those shooting guards, I think that's going to be how the Lynx have a lot of success this season.
Now let's talk conference play, because the Lynx did join the American Midwest Conference for the first time last year in basketball. And they actually didn't do too bad. They did lose a couple questionable games, but they ended up going to the postseason tournament championship game. What can we expect from the Lynx conference opponents this year? Obviously, AMC, one of the toughest conferences in America.
It is, and it's only going to get better. Obviously, Columbia and Freed are 2 of the best programs, not only in the conference but in the nation. But also this season, Missouri Baptist is going to be much improved because they have a new head coach who came from the Columbia system. So now that you're going to see a lot of that Columbia way of basketball going over to Missouri Baptist too. And, you know, in the AMC, as proven last year, there's just no gimme games. You know, we lost a tough one up at Benedictine Springfield last year, and I think that really came back to hurt us in the end of the season. But as the Lynx proved late in the season, they do have the talent to play with anybody, as they beat Columbia at home in the regular season and then went to Columbia in the AMC tournament and beat the 12th ranked Cougars. So we have the talent to beat anybody, but also anybody in the conference has the talent to beat anybody else on any given night.
Now, Freed is obviously our arch rival. I think we can say it.
Yeah.
Most definitely at this point. We don't like Freed. They don't like us, and there's always bad blood when we play that game. That should be a real interesting game this year, especially with the talent we have.
It should be. We always seem to play them well. We've beaten them twice or 3 times in the last couple of seasons, more than any other team in the nation. And we actually have them as the second conference game of the year. We go down to their place on a Saturday at 4 p.m. game. It's going to be real interesting to see that early in the season how our team is playing and how hyped up that game is. And it's always an interesting game. They come to our place again on a Saturday late in the season in the second half. So it's going to be a good preview. I wouldn't be surprised to see those teams match up again in the postseason.
Always great memories for Freed games. I remember my freshman year we played Freed Hardeman, and it was the first game I got to broadcast.
Oh, I bet that was a good one.
It was the Freed game right after we beat them on the buzzer beater when they were third,
Yeah.
and we beat them down at our place. And it was always real good games, very entertaining basketball.
Absolutely. Last year at their place in the conference championship game, that was a crowd that I'll never forget, and it went down to the wire, and you know, it was a great atmosphere to play in, and that's something you can always expect between the 2 programs.
And Freed obviously will just continue to improve this season. Always Freed has a great team.
Absolutely, they're well coached, and they're very disciplined on the offensive and defensive side of the ball, and that's something that I think the Lynx can learn from. You know, with a lot of new players this year, they're going to have to be disciplined to play in this league, and they'll learn that very quickly, and that's going to be a big game for them to see where they match up in the conference.
I think the one thing, kind of sticking with the Freed Hardeman theme a little bit, one thing the Lynx will have to watch out for, I think Freed's a little angry coming into this season. One of the favorites, I would say, to probably win, or at least go to the national championship game last year, and they lost in the 3rd round of the NAIA tournament to an unranked team, I believe, or a lower ranked team.
Right. It was kind of a disappointing finish for the teams in the AMC last year. No one went as far as they believe they should have. So that I think not only Freed, but the AMC has something to prove this year. Coming in, they're going to have a lot of big teams, hopefully at the top of the rankings. The first rankings come out on Tuesday, October 27th, and those rankings will stick until December. So it'll be interesting to see how many AMC teams get in that first preseason poll, and then how they adjust after that, as the teams will play about 9 or 10 games before the first ranking comes out. So I think the AMC has something to prove this year.
Now let's talk national tournament, because I remember pretty vividly when we went to the national tournament for the first time in school history. It was great. I got to sit courtside, broadcast the game. Always real fun. Now the Lynx obviously didn't finish with the result, but they got a pretty poor matchup against U-Pike, who's always U-Pike's always very good. But compare that team to this year's team, and do you think this year's team has what it takes to make the national tournament again? I
think they do, not only because of the talent on the team, but I think Coach Spinner has learned how to coach the entire season now. You know, last year the slow start hurt us, and win a couple of games at the beginning of the year, and that helps us at the end of the year get a couple more wins. And we just missed out on the national tournament last year. So I think that individually, if you go down the lineup, this team is more talented than any team we've had in the past. But it's going to matter of how we can mesh. Who's going to get the ball in the late scoring opportunity? You know, up until now, it's always been Craig Anderson. And now it's going to be who's going to step up and take that role. And that's a big thing to do and figure out early in the season. And those are the games that really help you make the national tournament. You know, it's not always about the late push, as we proved last year. So you have to be able to start the season strong and continue that momentum. And I think not only the coaching staff knows that now, they're going to have to relay that to the new players.
Well, I think the one big thing that stuck out for me, and being as close to the team as I was last year, was the sort of, if you compare the national tournament team to last year's team, the last year's team didn't really have that sort of workman-style attitude. The national tournament team was more blue-collar, if you ask me.
It was.
More like roll up your sleeves and let's get to work, whereas I think last year's team was a little bit too finesse.
Yeah. You know, there was a lot of times when we, tried to make the extra pass when you could have just taken the shot. But one thing I will say is that this team's going to rebound. You know, Lawson, even with the loss of Lawson Warren last year, who's the all-time leading rebounder now in Lynx history, this team is going to hit the boards hard. They're going to play physical. And one returner that we have is Colin Mingo, who's going to be a senior this year, and he averaged over 3 rebounds a game last year, but it was in 15 minutes per game. So, you know, if he gets more playing time, he's going to show these guys how we play basketball here. And, you know, hopefully we bring that blue-collar style back to where we're not going to take anything from any team. We're going to get down to business.
Mingo listed as 6'7" on the Athletics website. He plays a whole lot taller than
He does.
6'7".
He does. He
That-
knows how to play.
That guy, and he has some hops too. I've seen him in practice throw down some windmill jams.
It's going to be an entertaining season with the athletes we have on this team.
No, I think instead of Lob City, it might be Lub City,
Yeah.
LUB City this year. With
It could be.
with all the athletic players. So thank you, Dave, for joining us at the desk, and it should be an exciting, a very exciting basketball season.
It should. Everybody's excited to get underway tomorrow against Southwestern Christian to see what they have to bring to the table. You know, we lost to this team by 3 last year on the road, so it would be interesting to see how we respond in our home court.
And an interesting coaching situation at Southwest Christian with Coach Bliss.
Yes.
That rather, we won't really get too in depth about it, but if you want some good reading material, go look up Coach Bliss Baylor on the internet and find out. That's the coaching staff we'll be playing tomorrow night against
It's going
Southwest
to be a great
Christian.
start to the season.
It should be, and it should be a very interesting season. I think all the pieces are in place for the Lynx to go back to the national tournament.
Absolutely.
So thank you again, Dave, for joining us. That's all we have for the second annual men's basketball preview show. For Lawson Warren, Dave D'Alfonso, and Chris Sabo, I'm Jake Griffith. Don't forget to tune in next week. We'll have a regular edition of the Sports Report here on LBTV. Next Wednesday, we'll talk football, basketball, hockey, rugby, men's and women's soccer, and the whole slew of Lynx sports. Also, don't forget to tune in this Saturday as the Lynx will travel to Joliet, Illinois and take on St. Francis of Illinois. I will be on the call for that game. Game will kick off at 1 p.m. You can tune in to 89.1 HD3 The Link. So until next week, I'm Jake Griffith. This has been a presentation of the Sports Report.